All right, it is. 5:36, and I'm going to call this closed session special meeting of the council to order. I don't see any for oral communications. I don't see there are attendees or hands raised on Zoom. So calling for oral communications, but, oh, actually, we have to do roll call. Sorry, roll call first.
Councilmember Alves. Both Councilmember Hufty and Councilmember Taylor are absent currently, so Vice Mayor Haskell.
Here.
Mayor Wernicott.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Apologies. Calling to order this special closed session for 5:30, a few minutes late. It's 5:37. I'll just repeat, opening up for oral communications. We don't have anybody in the schoolhouse, nor do we have any attendees or hands raised on Zoom. So I will close the oral communications. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. I want to call the meeting to order, and we can do that, Corey, with roll call.
Councilmember Hufty. Here. Councilmember Taylor.
Present.
Vice Mayor Haskell. Here. Mayor Wernicott.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We just finished a closed session, and so we are going to start with a report from our town attorney on the closed session.
Great, thank you, Mayor and council community. The council did meet in closed session prior to this regular meeting agenda, and there is one reportable item. This relates to the conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. Name of the case is the Kona Trust versus Bill and Ruth Mainzer et al. The town of Portola Valley is also named as a defendant in this case. The council voted 4-0 with one member absent to direct the town attorney to defend the town in the litigation. And that concludes my report out of closed session.
Thank you, Catherine. We will now move on to agenda item 5, which is a presentation from Woodside Fire Protection regarding their ordinance 2401. Before we start, first of all, thank you to all of you from Woodside Fire for being here in person with us tonight. I also just wanted to share that this is the Woodside Fire's ordinance. Members of the public will be able to share their comments on this presentation during oral communications, but specific feedback to on the ordinance to Woodside Fire should go from the public to Woodside Fire because it's their ordinance, not a council ordinance. So with that, Kim, thank you for being here.
I got turned on. There we go. Am I able to share my screen for the present using the Zoom or no? Or I'm on your.
Are you the Woodside Fire guest?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. I wanted to present the new ordinance that we will be looking to adopt and want to introduce it to the town council. This ordinance has been in circulation since November of last year. There's been few versions of the draft ordinance. We did actually change the numbering system because since it hasn't been adopted and now we're in 2024, we wanted to change it from 2303, its previous version, to the new version of the 2401. Throughout the time since November, I have done some workshops by the courtesy of the Town of Portola Valley's Wildfire Preparedness Committee. They were kind enough to allow me during their meeting times, once in November and once in January, to present this ordinance, to do a Q&A session with the residents. We've pushed it out to multiple communities and IO groups. I have received since then many emails and feedback and comments and concerns. And with everything that has been reviewed, there were revisions that came out of it to address some of the concerns that residents had. And now in its current form is what we're going to be making one more adjustment. But with that, let me just start with the presentation. So before I get started, I just wanted to throw out a few little announcements from the district. One is in the next month, all the residents will be receiving a letter, and in the letter, it'll state that the annual inspections are looking to begin for your defensible space, and home hardening, home assessment inspections will be in May. And it also has the chipper schedule attached to it so that you know when your chipping date is going to be. It also gives you instructions on how to confirm your chipping date so that when our chipper crews come through, that they know that you are a house that is looking to have that service done. Also, just on the idea of the home inspections, this says April, but we're changing it to May. But I wanted to make it clear to everybody that we will only be doing 2,000 parcels this year. So it'll be 2,000 every year. So this year will be 2,000, next year 2,000, the year that follows 2,000. We have 6,000 parcels in our fire district. And with the amount of staffing that we have, we are only able to commit to 2,000 per year. And that's how that number came about, given each inspector that we have. What we are going to do is on our website, we will provide a schedule so that residents can go to our website and see if it will be their community that's being inspected this year. So we will be listing the communities on there so everyone knows when they'll be up on the schedule, if it's this year or the next or the one that follows. I am also looking at doing a home hardening workshop, and it's been in discussion with the Wildfire Preparedness Committee of possibly, again, utilizing one of their meeting days in April or May. It's still under discussion if that can be a possibility, where I would do a workshop on home hardening. And just wanted to give an update on the Stanford's Jasper Ridge pile burn that happened this past last week. It was a very wet week, moist week, and from what I've heard so far, it went very well. It was very successful. I haven't heard of any complaints that came through or any issues. I haven't received a full report from Stanford yet, but they did take a lot of videos and photos that they are putting together with their Stanford Media Group to create as an educational component to share with residents and with the town so they could see what this prescribed burn looked like and how it went, just so everybody has that frontline view of how everything occurred. So all that went very well. And I also wanted to inform everybody of Woodside Fire's new website. There is a lot of great resources and information. There's been a lot of questions from residents asking where are all these ordinances. So I can see why it's been difficult for some people to locate, because it actually comes out of the fire prevention division. So fire prevention is the one who handles all the ordinances. So when you go into our website, under our district, a big pop-up window will come in with all the different departments in the fire district. Under prevention, you can locate the ordinances and resolutions, and that's where you'll find all our ordinances. Or you can use the search bar at the top of your website and just type in ordinance and it brings it right up. Also, I like to encourage residents to go to the defensible space area of the website. There's a lot of resources, including the workshops that I have done. It has information on all my slide decks. So if people weren't able to attend and they don't watch the recording that's published on the Wildfire Preparedness Committee's recordings of past meetings, there's also the slide deck with all the videos that were shown, or actually we're not able to show because we weren't that good at trying to get the videos up there. But it has that information as well as smart plants. There's just a lot of good resources on there. I was going to show a couple of videos, but I'm going to save that for our workshop. I just want to get through this because I know we have other agenda items. So just a quick view on, oh, it's interesting. The screen shows up that way. Is this what everybody sees or what I see? Oh, huh. Let me see. Because that's not what it looks like on my screen. Let me try resharing again. Okay. Back to what I had. Let me try one more time. I see a couple of screens that pop up. So let me try this one. Huh, sorry, I don't know why it's not coming up. Now it's black, but on my screen, I have an actual screen. It shows my screen is paused. Let me see why, sorry. Okay, well, I'll move on, and I'm sorry that you're not able to see this, but I can at least speak on it. Okay, so one of the things at the beginning of the slide deck was, oh, I have a flash drive that can go to someone's computer. I don't know if that makes a difference, but there we go. So the beginning the beginning of the slide deck was actually, how does it start? We start with an inspection process. So I kind of wanted to outline for people to understand how the inspection process works. So you could either call the district if you want to schedule one, or you can email. This is something separate from the scheduling that will be out for when we go out to do inspections. But every homeowner also, if they want to have an inspection and assessment of their property, they're welcome to do so, even if they're not in the grouping of the parcels that we'll be inspecting this year. So I just wanted to make that clear distinction for residents that that is also available. What we do is we walk through your property. We identify both, it's called positive findings and negative findings. So we can identify all the positive findings around your property. If you have, let's say, metal guards, if you have the proper size vents, it will identify those and put them on your report as a positive finding. And then everything else that would be negative, it gives you the course of action on what's required to do to comply with what that requirement is. The software we're using is a software called Fireside. Currently, the report, the way it stands right now, does not follow this new ordinance because we haven't adopted it. But once we do adopt it, it will follow this line, because some people have had it and it says on there you have to comply within 30 days. And we've told residents, ignore that. That's not what is what we will be enforcing on. So we complete the inspection. When we're completed, it's preferable to walk with the property owners so we could educate them and make them aware of all the things we're finding. We also take photos of whatever we find, marking it up. And then within 48 hours, that report is emailed to the homeowner. There is a code that is given for you to access your report. This report is 100% confidential. It's between the fire district and the homeowner. It does not get shared with insurance companies. It doesn't get publicized to neighbors, anything like that. It is just between, unless, homeowners want to share the report, that's up to them. But otherwise, it is confidential to us only. Typically, the inspection process takes about 30 minutes to an hour, kind of depends on the size of your parcel, as well as how many questions you may have. So that's around the amount of time. And in order to show your compliance, there's a couple of options. Residents are able to take a picture of, so if we take a picture of, let's say, low hanging dry leaves or, branches that are too low on the tree and you're limbing up your tree, you just take a picture of that same area and upload it to your report. We get notified that an upload's been completed. We check, we verify. That's one way. If it's too difficult to see, we may have to come back to your property and reinspect. We can also just go back and reinspect if the homeowner doesn't want to do any of the photos. That's also an option. So there's different options on showing compliance. Along with this ordinance, which we'll get into in a moment, there will also be a guideline that's being published. I should have it sometime by next week, published on our website. This guideline will be adopted by our fire board, but this guideline is basically an interpretation to this ordinance. It's a guide for the homeowner on defensible space and home hardening. It outlines the ordinance exactly in its order, providing pictures, diagrams, how things are measured. It shows distances. It gives a lot of information, alternatives. I am working with the Conservation Committee on completing this document as well, and the Wildfire Preparedness Committee, once the draft is complete for them to review. So it's still I'm still getting it composed together and hopefully be done to publish as a draft for next week. So now on to the actual ordinance. So I've already presented this many times. I don't know if all of you have had a chance to read it, but I just wanted to hit on some of the highlights on what has been the most concerning parts of the ordinance that people still have. We have made a lot of changes, but one thing that was still a concern was the part on adjacent parcels. So this area that read the adjacent parcels was basically what I just found out actually in researching has been in our fire code ordinance for over 10 years. Just in this ordinance, I think the reason it became more of an issue is because of the housing element now that has been put through for the requirement of the ADU's construction, which if that's the case and they're able to construct these ADUs so close to the property line, what this ordinance said is that the adjoining parcel, that neighbor would be responsible for the additional 92 feet of defensible space, because the ordinance reads that around every structure, you need to have 100 feet of defensible space of a structure. So when these ADUs are to be constructed, and not that it's everywhere, but for those who have a neighbor who put one in, it would require that neighbor to do the remainder clearance for that structure. The concern with that is, one, the impact that it would have on that homeowner with cost, with creating that clearance. And when I say clearance, I just want to make it clear to people, clearance does not mean scraping an entire area to the ground. That word is meant, and it's probably the wrong terminology to be used, but I think it's one that's been used so much. It means maintaining your zones as it's described in the ordinance. So it's pruning your trees, limbing up your trees, removing anything that's dead and dying, all your dead leaves. So that's what that means, is clearance. So it's not removal of trees. So that was one concern. The other concern with the adjoining parcel was the increase in conflict that this may cause between neighbors, and that neighbors would have, it's difficult enough when a neighbor's, upgrading their fence and, you're trying to get that cost split. And, so we know all the experiences that homeowners have had with their neighbors, and this would just be another issue that would increase conflict. So with that, with much discussion and review on this, we have decided to remove that whole section from the ordinance and instead leave it as it is without it being in there, so no one's responsible. It will be a recommendation to create that defensible space on your property if you want. But as far as where that ADU is placed, the homeowner who is placing that ADU, they would be required to maintain the 100 feet of defensible space on their side of the property. And on the other side, that would be up to that neighbor if they want to create that defensible space, if any at all. It would be a decision that they can make together on their own, what have you. We decided that in 3 years, when we do another code adoption, because every 3 years is when we usually do our code adoption, if we find in the next few years that this presents a hazard, it presents issues with the ADUs, that will be the time when we will re-implement that back into the ordinance and enforce on that, given the evidence shown of what happened. So we're going to see how it goes. And hopefully that will allow residents a little reassurance that they don't have to worry about that right now. The other concern that the language was changed was a sale or transfer of a property. It was written that it was the seller's responsibility to maintain compliance when they sell their property to this ordinance. The language that was added was that it would be a negotiation and left to the buyer and seller to make the decision on who was going to comply with the requirements of this ordinance. And they have a year to do that compliance a year from the close of escrow. In addition to that, there's actually room for more time if needed. The ordinance does have an area for a phased compliance for those who qualify. There's a list of different reasons that can be requested to the fire district for whatever different situations come up that would be granted. So in this case, for like a sale property, if there's some kind of challenge, that can even go up into 3 years for compliance following the phase compliance within the ordinance. I wanted to also make clear, because it seems to be a big confusion that keeps coming up no matter how many times I say this. There is nothing in the ordinance that says that you need to remove your healthy living trees. Even if it's next to your house, even if it's in zone 0, as long as it's properly maintained and pruned, and we have some kind of separation of your branches to like your roof line and the side of your home, your tree does not have to be removed. No trees are to be removed. If you live on a hillside, given the appendix at the end of this ordinance, there's an appendix that shows for tree separation vertically and horizontally. Those are recommendations. The state fire marshal's office, when they wrote this template, actually that tree separation's been around for a long time, but when they did write this template for adoption that jurisdictions could use, those appendixes were included in there, and we just included them within this ordinance. But they're just recommendations. So if you live on a hillside and you think you need to remove dozens of trees to meet the spacing requirement, you don't. The recommendation is just create some kind of fuel break between your house and your hillside, because we all know how quickly, and if you don't know, you can YouTube it, how quickly fires run uphill. And the goal is to, if you have all that vegetation and you live at the top of your hill, is to create a separation between that vegetation to your house, so that if that vegetation's on fire, it won't ignite to your home. So it's creating a fuel break. So I just wanted to make sure I reiterated again, no healthy living trees will be required to be removed so long as they're maintained properly. Now, if they present a hazard because they're dead or dying, that's a whole different story. That is in the ordinance to be removed, but that's only if it presents a hazard and it's dead and dying, and it's within the 100 feet of your house. There was also a slide that I had that was actually quite interesting. CAL FIRE had put it out on one of their presentations on hazard severity zones. I wanted to make really clear to people, there's been comments of how come you're doing this for the whole district? I don't live in a very high fire severity zone. I live in a moderate. We have bits and pieces within our entire district that are in moderates, but we're also surrounded by the high and very high. This district, our entire district, is part of a wildland urban interface, which means there are applicable laws that pertain to the very high. The reason we are making this local ordinance to apply to our entire district is because it doesn't, for this specific ordinance, where you live doesn't matter. Because when there's a fire, the fire isn't going to stop because you're in a different zone. It's just going to find the fuel and keep burning. So this is really an effort for our entire district, all communities, because every house is going to affect every community and neighboring area when, should there ever be, which we hope there's not, a wildfire. And I wanted to also make sure that I make this clear. A lot of people, and just because through years have had this sense that the maps on your severity zone, that map is not for defensible space. That map is for land use planning, meaning it is used for construction and development. It doesn't pertain to this ordinance at all. This ordinance has to do with how you maintain your home? How do you increase the survivability of your home should there be a wildfire? Now, defensible space is not the only thing, which is why I'm doing a workshop on home hardening. They go hand in hand. They're both vitally important to increasing the survivability of your home. So going through a home assessment gives you a better idea of where your weaknesses are on your property and what the fire is going to find and how can we protect those exposures. So anyway, this slide that was on the fire hazard severity zone, what CAL FIRE did is through a lot of research, they took in 2017 all the different fires that occurred in California. Then they took all the homes that were in the urban, non-urban, moderate, high, and very high. And they gave the number of structures that were destroyed in these fires. Would you know that if you lived in the urban, 2,483 structures were destroyed by wildfire, and that's for the people in the urban area. Then we have those in the moderate. 3,645 homes were destroyed. In the high, 3,569 homes destroyed, and in the very high, 2,215 homes destroyed. So this was just to demonstrate that it doesn't matter what zone you're in. The fire is just going to come. And it's not just the fire front. People, I want people to understand that it's the flying embers that are flying all over that can be casted miles away that start the fires. They're looking for where they can find a fuel to start burning. I just found out, I heard that I think it was 2001, 2002, early 2000s, there was a fire here in the district. And when that fire occurred, actually an ember that from that fire actually burned a house here. Was it in Woodside or Redwood? It was the Albion fire. And just from that ember, burned the whole house from an ember. So I want to keep conveying the importance, not just of the ordinance, but that the severity zones don't matter. I had another picture, so it's great. I'll put this slide deck on our website as well for people to see. I have some images of what actual ember showers look like. So when there's an ember shower going through a house, what that actually looks like. In 2017, there was a Fountain Grove fire. It was called the Fountain Grove. It was in Santa Rosa. I think everyone knows about the Santa Rosa fire, one of the worst fires we've had in our history. There's a picture that shows all the vegetation around it, all the trees. Those are all still standing. A lot of them are green, but every house in between, they're all down to the ground. And it just depicts the importance of your home hardening that goes with your defensible space. Because believe me, that's why the trees, if they're up against your house, they're going to live. They're going to be the last thing to burn. Your home will burn before that tree does. So just to convey that importance and that distinction for people to really have an understanding. There's also information in this slide deck that you can find on the website. It's through Wildfire Prepared. It's about insurances and the requirements that insurance companies are populating together as their checklist when they come and do the inspection of your property. I've had residents ask, oh, if we comply with your ordinance completely, does that mean we'll keep our insurance? No, it doesn't, because this ordinance is at its minimum, the minimum requirements, whereas insurances are much more hardcore on their requirements. This at least is a step. But one thing insurance companies do look at when they're assessing homes and going from house to house, they also look at what the fire department has as their local ordinance if it pertains to defensible space. And they also take that into the account, the fact that a district has that ordinance in place. So through the years, this is going to take time for homes to be turned around and following this ordinance. We don't expect this to be in a month or 2 months or even 6 months. It's going to take time to get it to where it needs to be, but this is the starting point. We need to start doing what this ordinance says to start increasing that chance of also keeping your insurance. The last thing I wanted to discuss really quick is I wanted to make everybody aware that there is a system. It's called, they call it the WUI placard system. Basically what it is, it's a placard, it's a piece of paper. And when there is a wildfire in an area, the local fire department will not be assessing your home. They will be out on the front line fighting that fire. But all the resources that start to come in from nearby counties, other cities, other parts of the state, other parts of the country to assist depending on the magnitude of a wildfire, they will have these placards and they will go to homes that haven't been affected yet and they'll start assessing them. And the way they assess them is that they look at if there's access, water, and defensible space. Because if none of those exist, they will keep on moving. They will not even come to protect your home because there's nowhere for them to stand to protect it. There's no space for them to stand and fight for your house because there is no defensible space and the things that they need to keep themselves safe doesn't exist. So I like to inform homeowners that this is something that happens and this is where your defensible space is very helpful because it gives firefighters a place to fight and provide structure protection. Also defensible space, what it does is depending on the magnitude and when the planes are coming by with fire retardant to protect those homes and to extinguish fires that are already going on in the area, that defensible space opens up area for that retardant to come and land and fall, especially to your house. If you have a lot of overgrown and vegetation everywhere, it's just going to stop in the trees. It's not going to make its way down. So it's also important to understand that there are other reasons of maintaining defensible space. It's not just because we want you to do it to increase the survivability. It's also on the operations side of what is done with our firefighters. I think that's it. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kim. Do we have any, again, recognizing that this is a Woodside ordinance presentation, not for council decisions, but are there specific council questions at this point? Questions and comments, sure.
So first I wanted to thank the fire marshal. I'd like to ask that when the deck goes up on your website, that we put out in one of our newsletters a link to it so that the public can easily find it. So I just wanted to say that the outreach from the fire marshal has been fabulous, the public outreach. She's worked with our wildfire preparedness committee. She's worked with our conservation committee. She and I have had a number of conversations. She's worked with the public. So I really applaud the level of public outreach that you've done on this. I really think it's, you know, you and I talked a long time ago about how important it is to bring people along, and I think you've really done a fabulous job of that. So I'm really looking forward to the guidelines and inspections. And I think the guidelines themselves are going to go a long way to helping people understand what the ordinance means. Because the ordinance, and we talked about this, is a little bit harsh. It's written in legal language. And sometimes it's hard to tell exactly, like you were saying, what does clearance mean? I mean, it's proper clearance, and proper clearance means that you're meeting the zone requirements, but clearance kind of sounds like clear cutting. So I think the guidelines will go a long way to helping with that as well. So anyway, I just want to say thank you for your efforts.
Thank you, Craig.
Just thank you very much. The more we have an opportunity to hear directly from you on how things work, it's going to be to everyone's benefit. And we'll look forward to the website and sharing that information as appropriate. And thanks for working with our committees. It's one of the many ways we get the word out in the community. So appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
Mary, do you have anything? I'm just going to piggyback a little bit on the committee thing. I did talk to Jennifer Hammer, who's, as you know, is the chair of the WPC, and she just is so thrilled with the amount of collaboration and just how great your working relationship has been. So I just wanted to add that as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also the new website looks awesome. I just checked it out when you were, yeah, looks great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I guess I will ask because the public has an opportunity to comment during public comment on your presentation. So if you guys don't mind staying just for that, I think it's, we have the town manager report and then oral communications right afterwards. Thank you. Sharif.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Good evening. Just a couple quick updates. As you know, we've been working on our finances for the town. I'm happy to report that we have begun our fiscal year audit for fiscal year 2021. The auditors are reviewing that year. We are looking to do a year-end close for that. So it's significant progress. As you know, we have fiscal year 2021, 21, 22, and 23 to do. So very happy to report that Christian Company has got us to this point along with staff. to have that review. And I'm looking forward to the month of April, where we are anticipating having our year-end report, audit, and ACFR for the council and community to see. So 1 out of 3 down, if you will. Also, wanted to announce and reiterate that our town priority goal setting session is set for March 18th. The Sequoias has graciously accepted hosting us at their site. So excited to be offsite and at the Sequoias. It is a 9 a.m. start, and basically we're asking for the public comment. You are welcome to have public comment ahead of time in writing through our portal. It will be on Zoom for the audio portion only for the public comment piece, or you can also attend in person. We will have a written report at the outcome of the meeting, so folks that are not able to give public comment or attend, obviously will have a record of what was discussed during that day. So I'm excited to see what we can get through on that outcome, because I know it's been quite some time since we've sat down as a group and had that time to be able to set our priorities and goals moving forward. As you all know, we're also actively recruiting for a director of building and planning. We are actively recruiting for a director of finance, and a planning and engineering technician is also in the works, and I'll keep you all updated on the progress with that. And I'm working diligently, as you know, with my 1.5 hats, if you will, as town manager and director of finance, working with Cindy, our admin services manager, and Christian Company to provide a finance update, or a state of the finances, if you will, for not only council, but for the town. And I'm working on that for the month of April. March 25th, we have a finance committee meeting with George Savage and the finance committee to basically set the stage for those conversations moving forward as we discuss our finances and get a handle on what we need to do for the future. So look forward to that discussion with council and the community in April. And then also just the final note, and I will keep, mentioning this and talking about it, is that we continue with our reset, refocus, and restructure. And we are in that restructure phase where we are making changes to our staffing and restructuring and reorganizing some of the departments, and really taking the input of the community and council as we make those changes, whether it's to our building and planning department or our finance department, basically every department that we have, making positive strides and positive changes moving forward. And the restructure portion is the hardest part. It's the stickiest part. It's the messiest part. So just asking, for patience as we continue through this. And there is a finish line to that restructure, and looking forward to that as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharif. Comments and questions from the council? No. Just want to say on behalf of the council, we all thank you. We know it's been an incredibly busy time, and I think we're all looking forward to the meeting and the offsite on Monday. So thank you. With that, I will open it up to oral communications, and we have several speakers here in the schoolhouse, so I'm going to start with them. Kent Mitchell. Is that them?
Good evening, Kent Mitchell, 331 Portola Road, former member of the council. Thank you for your work. I know what kind of work it amounts to, and I appreciate that. I would like to ask one question through the chair of the fire marshal, if that would be appropriate. A clarification of what she said tonight.
I would suggest that we go through all the public comment, oral communications, and then if you would like, we could invite
Okay.
Woodbury Fire back.
Okay.
I'll just state what my question would be. My first question, what I heard tonight is there are going to be 2 fairly significant changes in the proposed ordinance. And I assume that would mean it would be reintroduced and it would not move directly based upon the introduction that was taken last month to an adoption at the next meeting. That's my question. I'm assuming
Okay.
that's the case. My main concern, and I wish to point out that there are 2 sections stated in the ordinance that one is in the Public Resources Code and one is the Government Code. And I want to point out that neither one of those sections requires in any way that the fire district go as far as it has gone to include all properties within the district boundaries. In fact, there are very definite qualifiers in both of those state ordinances. Both of them give them power to control defensible space, but they do not go so far as to include every property. For example, in the section 4291 of the Public Resources Code, it mentions that the building structures that are involved must be adjacent to a mountain area or forest covered lands, shrub covered lands, grass covered lands, or land that is covered with flammable material. The word covered is mentioned 5 times as a qualifier. They're obviously emphasizing that. And I think that to say that every property in this town is adjacent to either a mountain or a covered area. A covered suggests to me that the intent was they were talking about blanketed areas of shrub, trees, and forest and things of that sort. We do not have, we have many properties that are not within that category. Then when you go to the other section in the government code, it talks about occupied dwellings or structures, and it mentions the same areas, but it also adds 2 more requirements. One is that they be occupied structures, and secondly, that they be in a very high hazard severity zone, which we have some such zones in the town, but not the whole town. So to suggest or to even think that those 2 ordinances in some way mandate the extension of this particular ordinance to all parcels in town is just not warranted by either of those 2 statutes. The other thing, my main concern here is that I don't know anybody until 2 days ago in the town that even knew that this ordinance was pending. Now, that's our fault, I suppose, for not paying attention, but I can't believe that there are even 90 or even 10 or 15% of the people in the town that know this is going on. And the impact.
Mr. Mitchell, I feel terrible, but we are
Okay,
almost
well,
30
that's what I think.
seconds.
I would
So
urge the council in closing that they
Thank you.
stress the importance of much more exposure to, and make sure people know what's going on, because this is going to be a big hit and it's going to be a problem for all of us. Thank you.
thank you very much.
By the way, I've submitted my statements in writing through email tonight, so I'd ask that be put in the record.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next speaker is Margie Power. Sure. Yeah.
Side stand. Thank you. Good evening, council members. My name is Margie Power. It's okay, hard G, everybody gets it wrong. And I am co-president and co-founder of Leadership Council San Mateo County. And I wanted to share some opportunities with you all for Portola Valley to participate in some of our programs. We are a countywide cross-sector leadership professional development organization. We run 2 10-month programs, one Friday a month, one for senior level leaders and one for emerging leaders. And our goal is to empower participants with the civic knowledge, so issue education, housing, economic development, climate change, et cetera, enhance their leadership skills, and strengthen their relationships around the county. Many cities are facing similar challenges, and we find that if we put you all in the same room together, new ideas spark. So we have those 2 immersion programs. We have 4 electeds in our programs this year. We would love for you all to consider participating, or city staff. I know you're in the midst of hiring, but maybe once they're on board, that might be a great way to orient them to the county. And then also for the wider community, we'd love to have you advertise in your town newsletter for people who live or work in Portola Valley to participate. We also have an elected leaders program that hopefully you all got an invitation. This is the flyer. It's 2 half-days at the end of April. And our goal is to really bring representatives from your council and with other council members around the county to create a peer learning group, sort of a community of practice. I know you do get together from time to time, but not necessarily on an ongoing basis, where you can really deepen those relationships, share challenges. I was on school board in my community for 9 years, and we had a similar organization, the County School Board Association. It was such a source of support and then a shared challenge, problem solving. So hopefully one of you can join us, or 1 or 2. We'd love to have at least 1 person from every city there. And then finally, I wanted to invite you to consider becoming a city partner. We have 7 city partners to date, and the benefits are that you get discounts on leadership development opportunities. You get guaranteed spots for your community in the class. You can send planning commissioners, you can send anyone you'd like. And it can be, the partnership could be just enabling us to use meeting space, or you can come speak to the class. The perfect relationship is to sponsor us at certain financial level. That's a huge help to us. Usually it comes out of the city manager budget, so it's not a big amount. And that's it. I'll leave some information with the clerk, and I'll follow up with an email, and would love to share more and talk offline. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Tyler Hawes.
Good evening, council. Thank you. I think I'll also take the opportunity to stand. My name's Tyler. I'm here on behalf of Civic Bell. We're a locally owned and operated just down the hill in Palo Alto civic engagement technology company. I don't mean for this to be solicitation hour, but this is more of an informative presence to the council that we are, let me, I guess, first describe who we are a little bit. So Civic Bell's been around for a little over a year and a half. It's a civic engagement technology platform that takes the kind of visual appearance of a social media platform, a Twitter, Facebook, Nextdoor. But the main difference here is that we're purpose-built for productive civic engagement. What that really looks like is namely, first and foremost, verifying that anybody using Civic Bell with an account, then commenting, responding to a survey, et cetera, is a real human being who factually resides within their political district. A full vertical stack from their city districts to their water district, to their school district, up to state assembly, state senate, et cetera. And then allowing them to succinctly maintain civic engagement conversations with those officials and with other verified members of their constituencies in this online space. We've been in Santa Clara and San Mateo counties in the slowly growing presence for a little bit now. People using Civic Bell include State Assembly Member Mark Berman, folks in the coast side in school boards and city councils, and then also on the other side of the hill here in Mountain View and kind of scattered all the way around. So really just here informing the council of our presence, inviting you guys to take a look at what we have going on. It's a great free, I emphasize free, way to come take a look at easy, immediately implementable ways to interact with the community, to gather input, to have high quality analytics and feedback in this purposefully designed setting and forum where you could say, make a survey, say, hey, community, what do you think about this issue? And know that those people responding to that survey are real people at zero cost, as long as they're willing to sign up and make an account and whatnot. Our verification process is very non-intrusive. All we're using is a name, a phone number, and an address. And then we don't actually have any more requirements than that to say that those kind of 3 things triangulate to the same household, in fact. So if this is of interest, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm tyler@civicbell.com. You can send me an email, or I have a business card, we can chat. I'd love to show you guys around. I'd love to kind of further learn about the problems facing Portola Valley. And that's all. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Let's, oh, thank you. Are there others within? Yes, please come on up. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you. My name is Lou Salerno, 75 Golden Oak Drive, and I submitted a comment to Sharif, and I was at the meeting with Captain Fox. I just wanted to voice my strong support for the flock cameras. I think they're, my understanding is they're used all around California, and I think they would be very beneficial for us to adopt in Portola Valley. The second thing I wanted to discuss was I wrote a letter actually to Sarah Wernikoff. We need to do something about the infrastructure. The PG&E goes off just without warning, and the Comcast that we have in our home goes out several times. I have a log at home. One day it went out 15 times within 2 hours. I've called Comcast. Where I'm going with this is that President Biden has appropriated money for infrastructure for the federal government. Anna Eshoo suggested that I contact my town and ask them to request those funds. And maybe we can help our friends at Comcast and PG&E out by helping them build up the infrastructure, because in our internet-based society, when the internet goes out, telephone goes out, the television goes out, you might say, oh, use your cell phone. No, on 75 Golden Oak, I live 4th from Alpine Road. There's no cell phone service. Even repair people from Comcast or whoever it is that come to the house cannot get a signal. So please help us out. Thank you very much. I wish I had one of those timers when I worked for NASA. Some of those.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other hands raised in the schoolhouse, so I'll go to those who are joining us on Zoom. Carolyn Vertonghen, you're first up.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
First of all, I would like to understand why we cannot access the Zoom meeting by phone. We were not giving a password for the Zoom meeting, so we could not log in. It's very inconvenient. I only have 3 minutes, so I concur with the previous resident. Infrastructure. We have been asking town council for over 10 years to improve our infrastructure, and nothing has been done. Secondly, I appreciate Kent Mitchell to inform us and educate us on the codes, the state and federal codes. Mr. Taylor, Town Council Member Taylor, thank you very much. I urge that the fire district makes it easier for us, because all government agencies, they make it more complicated. We have to go to the website. The website is it's a nice presentation, but nothing is practical and nothing gets done. And so now I will address the fire district. I was wondering why you're not holding the developer or the owner who puts affordable housing in accountable for making sure that there is defensible space on both sides. Why does an owner have to do that? And then I would like to understand what the fire district has done, because we have had an issue with water pressure for over 10 years in Portola Valley, and yet the planning department continues to build housing and is not addressing water pressure among the other infrastructure issues. So I appreciate your presentation, but it's time that we work as a group, as a community. And we pay a lot of taxes. Our taxes have increased every year, and we don't get anything back from the town or from any government agency. So I encourage you to work together with all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Next up is Rita Comas.
Hi, thank you for taking my comment. First, I'd like to thank the Woodside Fire Protection District for their presentation, and for people, not an advertisement for the town of Woodside, but if you look at their town council meeting, they had a very nice write-up on this particular ordinance. And when the town is referring to Woodside Fire Protection District, I hope that we clarify by saying Woodside Fire Protection District and not just Woodside, because we're all in this together, and whatever happens in Woodside affects us, and the Woodside Fire Protection District protects all of us. So I really appreciate that. And you know, it's amazing, the gentleman from 75 Golden Oak and Carolyn Vertonghen, it's not my birthday, but I'm so happy to hear that somebody else is concerned with utilities and infrastructure. So many of us in our town have been asking about this for a plan for years, especially with the housing element, and not just the housing element, just every day with phones not working. I finally canceled one of my landlines because I got tired of it not working and then not getting reimbursed for the $90 they kept charging me every month. but it's much better now. But sometimes it's actually on, even though I canceled it. But we need to put together a plan. So hopefully next week, when the council is meeting, the staff is meeting, that is part of the plan, an actual 5, 10, 20, 30-year plan for infrastructure in our beautiful town. And I still am concerned about the audit. I hear that it's being worked on, and these are the past audits. This isn't not just the last audit that hasn't been done, but nothing has been completed. And I have a concern, and I know I see on the warrant list, we're paying a lot of money for these services to be moved forward, but it's still, nothing has been done and completed. And so, you know, really, if we can go back to a timeline, not promises of meetings in the future that eventually be canceled, which several meetings in the town have been canceled lately, but a note to the town people about what's the timeline of these things. It's we've got a lot of stuff, and yes, we're rebuilding, but let's actually show some results. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Christy Corley.
Yeah, I wanted to thank Kim for her presentation. I've gone to almost all of them. I would like to see the slides made available to the people of the town so they fully understand it. I do have one concern, and I don't know if Kim could help out, but the gas line, if there was to be an earthquake, I'd like to hear that the shutoff valve has been completed and how many people can implement that shutoff valve. That is one of my concerns. So somebody could follow up with that in the future and give us some peace of mind regarding that. Thank you. I am for purchasing the Flock license plate readers in our town, and I'd like to see a presentation to the town council in the future from Flock so residents can learn about the improved system to help us with crime. I've done a survey of the surrounding towns, and they have 14 to 49 Flock cameras. I think I hit about 8 cities calling each one. They are movable, they're solar, and the sheriff values these cameras. It adds to the sheriff's safety. Sheriff can help set locations for the Flock cameras, and we need an updated crime camera ability. And I do want to add that I'm opposed to the opt-in program with 130 parcels listed in Portola Valley without the parcel owner consent to participate. The revised opt-in program did not go back to the Planning Commission for a review to allow the residents to hear a discussion, and that would have been really helpful. We should count on SB 9 units for RENA numbers since we already have one SB 9 unit. We have one lot split in town, and SB 9 is already a state law. And thank you all for your volunteerism. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Christy. Dale Pfau.
Great. Thank you very much for your time. I wanted to lend my support to the letter that was written by Karen Askey that was in the package today. And I am still bothered tremendously by this council's complete change by adopting the opt-in program to go to about 135 properties in Portola Valley compared to the original plan, which was a limit of just a few parcels. I feel that this was a pressure by the state HCD, and you bowed to that pressure. I don't think it's appropriate. I think we ought to somehow find our way out of this, and in at least this should have gone to the Planning Commission and have several meetings of townspeople, because I still don't think people recognize the significance of what you've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. I I don't see any additional hands in the schoolhouse, and there are no more hands raised on Zoom. So I will close oral communications, but invite Kim to respond to any questions that you're able to at this point.
So to answer your question, first, yes, because we're making a change to the ordinance and making an amendment to it. The first reading will be this month and at the end of this month, and then the adoption for the second reading will be for April. Also, in regards to what state law says, first, this ordinance has not been drafted illegally in any way. We are within our legal authority to be able to make these restrictions and apply it to the entire district. And I would paraphrase this, but I don't want to lose its true meaning in by just saying it how I would. So I'm just going to read it. So the authority to impose defensible space requirements district-wide and not limited to high or very high fire hazard severity zones is given to us by the Public Resources Code 4117, which authorizes the district to adopt fire prevention regulations that are necessary to meet local conditions of weather, vegetation, or other fire hazards. Such regulations may be more restrictive than state statutes in order to meet local fire hazard conditions. Section 2 of the ordinance, which is the findings of fact where you can find this information, including but not limited to Section 2H, explains local fire hazard conditions and making the defensible space regulations in the ordinance applicable throughout the district. The first paragraph of Section 2H of the ordinance reads as follows. The fire district's adoption of stringent fuel mitigation and exterior hazard abatement standards is designed to supplement the requirements of Public Resources Code Section 4291 and Government Code Section 51182, both sections that were referred to earlier. Apply similar requirements that are more restrictive to all private persons and private and public entities throughout the fire district, utilizing the State Fire Marshal's Model Defensible Space Program as a guide in establishing such requirements, and decrease the risk of structure fires spreading to adjacent vegetation and the risk of vegetation fires and wildfires spreading to structures, thereby slowing or stopping fires. The board bases these standards upon its findings that the following climatic, vegetative, geological, and topographical conditions within the fire district create a grave risk of wildfire and resulting loss of life and property and environmental damage. These local hazards fire conditions warrant extensive fuel clearing requirements throughout the fire district up to within 100 feet of any structures. So I also just want to add to that, and I did present to the town of Woodside yesterday, the town council. And one thing I did add, because when I said we're all in this together and what affects one neighbor or one community can affect others within minutes of a wildfire starting, is I have had the opportunity to be deployed to wildfires. And the last one I went to was the Paradise Fire, which we are all familiar with, and the devastation that created. And it wasn't just driving through the area and seeing what these homes look like, which was basically nothing except down to the ground. But when we ate at a restaurant for lunch and dinners, is the number of people who were in there with nothing more than the clothes that they had. It was people coming to our tables and thanking us for being there and trying to protect their communities, because when they were driving through their town with the fire in their rearview mirror and them barely able to escape with their lives, it made me feel how thankful I am to not be in that situation, because I can't imagine what that's like. And now working here in a jurisdiction that is in a wild urban interface, regardless what our thoughts are of how things should be applied, I never want any resident to have to experience what these people have. And this is why we are doing everything we can to make sure that if it does happen here, that we're already offering some kind of survivability for our property, for our homes, for the people in them, and most importantly, all the firefighters that are coming here to protect this environment, to protect your homes. So this is the reason why we stand by this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you again to Woodside Fire for all of you for being here tonight as well. And with that, I am going to close, well, I already closed oral communications officially, so we will move on to the consent agenda, item number 8. And looking at my fellow council members, is there anything that you would like to pull from the consent agenda? Yes or no, guys? Nothing. Okay. I think we should take oral communications then on the consent agenda. I don't see any hands raised in the schoolhouse. I'll give it a minute here on Zoom. I don't see any hands raised on Zoom. So I'll close oral communications on the consent agenda and we'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Councilmember Hufty, Councilmember Taylor,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Haskell,
Aye.
Mayor Warnikoff.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Corey. Moving on to agenda item 9, the regular agenda, the approval of the fiscal portion of the sheriff's contract. With that, I will give it to you, Sharif, to present the information.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
I was just gonna ask, would you know if we took like a 5-minute
Sure.
break since we started early tonight?
Yeah, that's fine.
Would you, and then this will be a natural.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do that.
That's fine. Okay, to everybody in the audience, we're going to take a 5-minute break. We will resume at 8:15. All right, no problem. It's 8:15. I will call the meeting back in session, beginning with regular agenda item 9A. Sharif.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. What you have before you tonight is an updated contract for the San Mateo County Sheriff's Agreement. And basically, it's the fiscal aspect only that we're really taking a look at for tonight. In my very short report, you can see where I mentioned that we're looking at the financial aspect of this. The Sheriff's Office is asking that we sign this contract for this fiscal year and next to basically get us on the same cadence as other jurisdictions so that they're rolling out their contracts in the same order and the same calendar, if you will. Our Captain Matthew Fox is here to answer any questions you may have, but at the same time, really wanted to have this focus on the fiscal aspect. There'll be other opportunities in future months and future years to talk about the actual services the sheriff provides, whether we want to enhance those services or take some away in the future. We have paid about $600,000 to date, year to date for this contract this fiscal year. The contract in the agreement is for $1.2 million, which basically brings us to about $1.9 million for this year. A fully executed contract for the Sheriff's Office would be to the tune of about $2.3 million. So this reflection is to get us caught up for this fiscal year of that $1.1 million agreement. There'll be then another fiscal portion or addendum for the following year. I first wanted to start out by thanking Sheriff Christina Corpus for her willingness to work with Portola Valley, for being a true partner and helping us move forward with the contract. I had the opportunity to meet with her multiple times in the last couple months, and she's obviously very committed and dedicated to Portola Valley. She was once a captain here, as you all know. And so she was gracious enough from the very beginning to provide us with some financial relief. And so the fiscal contract, as you know, and the discussions we've had many times as a town, was that there was about an $850,000, $900,000 increase to our sheriff's contract moving forward. Right off the bat, Sheriff Christina Corpus was very willing and able to help us provide financial relief to the tune of 50% of that increase for about $450,000. So the town of Portola Valley built in that $450,000 increase for this fiscal year. We accounted for it. It is in the budget using ARPA funds and reserves moving forward. So this year is accounted for. What we then did is, upon my tenure and upon being here as your town manager, Corey and I held a couple meetings, and we met with Mike Callaghy, the county executive for the County of San Mateo, and with Robert Manquilla, who's the chief financial officer for San Mateo County, and basically laid out the finances of the town, laid out our plan with, Christian Company and our audits and the different pieces, and basically talking about getting our finances in order. And the request that we had was to ask the county for further financial relief, if you will, to help us so that we can get back on track, not only in our finances, but also be able to pay this bill, if you will, moving forward. And so what's not in the report, and what I'm happy to announce today to council and to the community, is that the County Executive Mike Callaghy and Robert Mankia are able to and are willing to help us with next year's contract for another 50% relief. So another $450,000 of relief to the town of Portola Valley. So we're on the hook, if you will, for $450,000 increase. And then in the third year, fiscal year 25, 26, basically helping us with 25% of that increase, which is about $225,000. All those dollars are fluid. It's basically the 50% relief and 25% relief because we actually pay actuals. We're not paying in this agreement. The actuals might go up or down, but really wanted to extend a thanks to the County of San Mateo for helping us, being a true partner in this and helping us with the financial relief. So basically what we've been able to do is provide, and the county's been able to provide $1.1 million in financial relief to the town of Portola Valley moving forward to get us to smoothing over that contract, if you will, because in year 26, 27, that's when the full bill is due. And we have to be able, as a town, be able to have a measure to get us to pay that bill in full, whether it's a parcel tax, a revenue measure, whatever those discussions may be. But this gives us time as a town to do that. So really wanted to thank the County of San Mateo for that. Another thing that in talking with Sheriff Christina, with Sheriff Corpus, is that she really wanted to reiterate reestablishing a relationship with the town of Portola Valley and really being part of the town and feel like we're both inclusive and welcome in the town. And so part of my commitment back to her, and along with the thanks of this financial relief, is really providing a storefront, if you will, for our sheriff's office, whether you call it a sheriff's substation or a storefront, but really being visible and out and about. And basically what we have right now is a cubicle with a desk. There's a couple mountain bikes there. It's in our courtyard. And my commitment to Sheriff Corpus as town manager was to say, we really honor the sheriff's work. We want to get them a nicer, more comfortable spot. And I'm looking at different avenues of how we can do that, whether it's, looking at an actual storefront that we rent. We actually did talk to Chief Tom and the Woodside Fire Protection District, see if there's a spot there. There wasn't a spot that was feasible, but there are other places and other things that we can do. Maybe we look at remodeling the courtyard as an example to have a comfortable spot. And what we want is signage on the road that says your sheriff's office is this way. Come and sit with the sheriff, file your report, sit down and have a more comfortable spot, not only for residents, but also for the sheriff's office. So I made that commitment on behalf of the town to do that without obviously overpromising or having anything that's really cost prohibitive for us as a town. One of the things that also an important item to note for tonight's contract is there was a piece in there about alarm permit and response fees. That entire section is actually boilerplate language that is in some of the contracts for other jurisdictions. I have an updated contract that just came to me today, and that entire section has been dropped and omitted from the contract. So we're not responsible as a town for alarm fees or permit fees regarding alarms and those pieces. So that entire section you won't see in the final agreement, if you will. So basically that's the update as far as the sheriff's contract, just really moving forward in partnership with the County of San Mateo, thanking them for all their work, and especially having them be able to provide us with that financial relief moving forward.
Thank you, Sharif. Before we move on to council questions, I just want to recognize your good work also with negotiating that with Christina Corpus and the County of San Mateo and the savings that you and staff were able to realize for the town in that process. So thank you. Questions from the council?
What's the action we're being asked to take tonight?
So the action is to approve, and I don't know what the correct wording is for, maybe Catherine can help, but it's basically allowing the mayor to sign the contract on behalf of the town for fiscal year 23-24 and 24-25, which is the contract that's attached in the report.
As amended.
As amended with the false alarms or the alarm permits removed.
Mhm. Okay, so there's, have you gotten commitments from the sheriff about maintaining the standard services? Because the prior agreement specified a lot, and I know they're shifting to a simplified agreement. But I had asked for some assurances to be made of no change in the amount, quality, nature of the
Yes,
services.
basically nothing changes in our services for the town of Portola Valley at this point.
Thank you.
Okay, no questions. We don't have anybody in the schoolhouse, other than Captain Cox. Thank you for being here. I do not see any hands raised on Zoom, opening it up. Okay. Sorry. Rita Gomez.
Yes, I wanted to, thank you for taking my comment. I wanted to ask about the readers that Captain Fox had talked about at that meeting that we had with the town. And in order to facilitate that, you know, I've talked to the sheriffs in the past about front plate license plates. And no matter how many readers we have, if we don't stop people with without their front license plates, it's not, we're not helping ourselves. And it's not just bad people driving in our town, like what happened last month without license plates. And when I've talked to people in the sheriff's department before, they're like, you know, do their shoulders, and it's like, oh, we can't really do that. Well, I really hope that for the safety of our town, that people get stopped and fined. And I don't know if under this new contract, if the town receives any of that ticket money for that, or any of the other ticket money for speeding or for other things. I think in previous conversations, it was found that the town does not receive any of that money. But I hope that somehow that's tied into the contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Christy Corley.
Thank you. I'm really thankful for the sheriff checking my home during vacation watch and any other calls I may make. I think that's a great service for our residents. Now, I have a few ideas for additions to the sheriff contract. Notify the town residents via official sheriff news release within 24 hours and ideally right away. So we saw the Windy Hill official news release, but we have not seen the incidences that happened on Golden Oak. And I'm not sure the rest of the town knows about it if they're not reading everything. So I'd like to see that written into the contract. Every crime gives a, you know, in the block 200 to 400 on a certain street, and then we're all alerted that people are doing this and down. It really has changed my life since I live close. I'd like to see you knock on doors 1,000 feet from a burglary to inform direct neighbors what happened that day or evening. Number 3, you know, I like the idea of them being in town and enjoying their space, but also the response time could go up, and then we could go down, could be improved. And the monitoring on a quarterly average, we could ask for that as average response time. I know Hillsboro's 2.5 minutes, and gosh, if we could ever get there, I'd love it. And then I did ask some of the neighbors. Obviously, I already talked about the flock camera that I'm in favor of. More sheriff presence, more hours in Portola Valley, maybe a minimum number of hours where you're just driving the streets. I'm not sure where that stands, and we're not aware of it. How can this be written into the contract? Increased presence, more local patrolling in marked cars, increased closer patrolling could bring down response time. These are, you know, people on my street. Ensure license plate readers are put into good use. Current readers, you know, how many times do you go into our system to solve crimes? I'm not sure we're aware of that as the public. And those are Oh, and then one other thing that the sheriff submit, written Portola Valley accident, location and number to the Bike Pedestrian Traffic Safety Committee in written form the Tuesday before the previous meeting to be attached to the agenda so the public can read it. Reports have not been in the BPTS agenda, therefore the public's not updated at a later date if they wanted to go look at that agenda. So thank you very much for listening to my possible additions, and I've written all this previously to our town manager.
Thank you, Christy. Next up is Carolyn Bertonga.
Can you hear me? Unfortunately, I was not able to hear what the other residents had to say because, again, we lost communication. It's really, I thought we had asked town council to implement better communication, and I see it's getting worse and worse. Perhaps it's a tactic to prevent people from communicating, but I will not stop. Unfortunately, under Sergeant Kristen Bell and even our new appointed Sheriff Corpus, we did not have the services as listed in our contract. And we learned upon her departure that she has a degree in mental health. Well, if you have a degree in mental health, then you would prevent alcohol and drug abuse. And unfortunately, our schools are not preventing that. And so I blame her for not investigating abusive, fraudulent, illegal, and criminal conduct. I'm one of the healthcare providers who work in schools and hospitals, and we are silenced. Unfortunately, that's a common theme. It's political, yes, but this is what's going on, not just in the Bay Area, but all in California. So I will not stop saying anything. Secondly, look at the contract. We don't have the servicemen that they propose. We only have one deputy, and we share it with Woodside. We only have one community officer, and we share it with a bigger district. So please, don't sign this, investigate. We have not had a contact with the town manager. He has not heard our experiences with previous and with the current town sheriff's department. So don't sign it. It's a financial contract, but you have to make sure that the services are rendered. Look at the burglaries that have happened again. We know the cause, but you don't want to address it. So I'm very upset, not only because there's no communication, but nothing has been done. And we continue to sign a contract with the law enforcement, but they have to improve their services. And this current contract is a bogus. So please, read it, understand what is in there, and adjust it. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. I do not see any other hands raised, so I will close oral communications on this and bring it back for council comment and discussion. Mary, would you like to start?
I have no comment.
So I don't have any issues with the contract. I would encourage the town manager to take the residents' comments and then talk to the sheriff and see if we can't get some of the reporting. I do think that that's important, you know, some kind of measurable, and quarterly is fine. I don't think that we need it in monthly increments, but just so that the residents have a sense for, you know, what they're getting for their tax dollar. So that would be the only thing I would add. Thank you.
Judith?
Sure. Well, first, thanks for working through a tough situation for the town, Reef. We really appreciate it. And we really do appreciate the efforts of the sheriff and the whole team. It's a community and we appreciate you recognize that by accommodating our needs. I don't want to get too theoretical here. I've constantly had observations on how high level the contract is. and how we can't really see as much as the prior contract what we're getting. I'm assuming that's not something we can impact at this point. So I then go to what can we do to accommodate some of the concerns being expressed? And I assume that there could be a practical way, as Craig was alluding to, making sure there's a more organized approach to reporting the crime statistics to the BP, the Bicycle Pedestrian Committee. And also, I think people were quite alarmed to learn about the burglaries in a rather anecdotal way. And I do think there should be some examination of what to communicate and when, because it's such an important community function that you would serve, and I welcome you being more integrated in the way Sharif has in mind. So I think, we appreciate what's going on, but I hope the sheriff's team will work to address some of these concerns with by working with the community rather than, getting into the contract terms necessarily. We've always had a long-term relationship, and I think that's the way to start addressing this, but I would want to see that type of commitment. Thank you.
Maybe I would make a comment. I do applaud Sharif's plan to open the windows in the house where they sit, and I think the whole community has been mentioning that for a long time. So I'm really glad to hear that. We're going to do that, and I'm so glad to hear that the sheriff's department wants to do that. I think that's really, really helpful for our town. At the risk of being shut up, I would say that the reinstating the police commissioner, not reinstating, but allowing the current police commissioner to resign and give us another police commissioner who helps with the liaison between bicycle, pedestrian, and traffic, as well as with emergency preparedness with the sheriff's office, would greatly improve our relationship with the sheriff's department as well as with the community. I think all of a sudden you'd have someone who knows what's going on, who sees the inside of both buildings.
Thank you. And I just want to echo the comments that I made earlier. I think we're very fortunate to have Christina Corpus at the helm. She knows our community. I think, we have a great working relationship with the Sheriff's Department. We appreciate all of you and all the hard work that you do. I thought the coffee that you gave to the community was excellent a couple weeks ago. And I just look forward to continuing our longstanding, strong relationship with the Sheriff's Department and, continuing, bringing back maybe a little bit more of the communications that have fallen aside. I think that's something, that can easily be addressed. So thank you so much for being here and for all your good work. Sure, please do. Thank you.
Sorry, I don't want to take up too much time. On behalf of the sheriff, I just want to convey to not only the council, but a lot of credit should be passed on to Sharif behind the scenes. I think a lot of grace, a lot of forgiveness on both ends, right, as we start to navigate the new chapter of Portola Valley. So I don't want that to be lost on the board. So I know behind the scenes, he's been going to bat for the town of Portola Valley, and I can tell you that the sheriff, Christina Corpus, that's the main goal. We're on the same team, right? So when we talk about, I hear the comments from, the community members that might not be privy to some of the town hall, the meetings, the information. That's not contract language. What that is, that's called a relationship. And so I can tell you that preemptively to this meeting, Sharif reached out to me and said, hey, we'd like to get press releases on this. And I said, absolutely. I said, there was, in the one we're probably talking about, we also have to take into effect that the members of Portola Valley might not want their information out. Right? So we have to kind of weigh investigative leads, resident privacy, and the needs to know of the community, right? So there has to be another mechanism And so me and Sharif already worked this out before this meeting, probably 2 weeks ago. I said, hey, I'll send you a press release that we may never send out. Right? There's certain information that we've communicated, and I'll be more than happy. You can have my cell phone number. Everybody in Woodside that has it on town council. You can reach out to me anytime just to get a kind of update. And I usually update Sharif and he can update you. Like, hey, we can't say this out loud, but this is what's happening. Just so you guys know, it's kind of hard, right? Because we're trying to solve cases at the same time, right? So those are some of the things like neighborhood checks, the flock cameras. I mean, I can comment on them. It's on blue in the face. You know what I mean? We understand there's pros and there's cons, right? Everyone's going to have their say that they work or they don't work, right? So I can tell you just from a law enforcement standpoint is that they do work. You know what I mean? Might be that one case, and I can tell you in our meeting that we had, they've worked, and there's an investigation going right now that involves members of the Portola Valley community. And the amount of resources that are thrown at Portola Valley and Woodside is astronomical. And it has nothing to do with the language, right? So I can tell you that the sheriff's position is not only building that relationship, but having that conversation. And I think Sharif can probably vouch for me. I'm pretty accessible. You know, if you need something, if you want a special detail, we send officers up here on different details, not only just patrolling, but also to do step enforcement, you know, the motorcycles. The last one we did last 2 Saturdays ago, 85% of the people we ticketed did not live in Portola Valley or Woodside. You know, education always kind of comes first. You know, we don't want to come up here and ticket everybody for no front license plates. A lot of it's education, just because otherwise you would be busy with emails and complaints. And I know you have other things to do, right? So we have to kind of find that balance. But as I sit here today, and as we move forward, you know, we can't really read the last chapter. We're trying to move on to the next chapter. So what I tell you and the board is that I'm a phone call away. You know, if you say, hey, can we do a special detail? Can we do this? This is what I'm hearing, because I may not hear it. You can communicate. He's very receptive. He knows I'm somebody who believes on showing up. You know what I mean? That's why I'm here, and I'm not on Zoom. I think sometimes you have to show up. So I just want to reiterate to you there, as it relates to stats and statistics and so forth. I know we give certain stats. I know I did a handout. Hopefully you guys might have got that I gave out. It kind of took the steam out of some people's fight because they thought it was much bigger than it was. And Woodside was the same way. People were like, oh, we didn't have any burglaries in February? So you didn't. And let me tell you why. Not why, but what may have helped that, right? So, but any stats that you need that we can get you, obviously monthly might be hard because just data and getting all that together and resources, I don't want to overpromise, but at the same time, I think quarterly reports, if you just give me specifics of what you're looking for, I'll get that to you. That's a ground ball for me. Okay. Because the data is there. Right. But if there's anything specific that you guys want done in Portola Valley to get that presence or engage the community, all you have to do is communicate to us. You might only have one deputy on paper, but I can send 4 deputies up here for something you have in the park. You know what I mean? It's literally a phone call. So I just want to reiterate to you, and I don't want it to be lost in council, that behind the scenes, he's been working with Sheriff Corpus. And just to reiterate what you said, Sheriff Corpus is committed to Portola Valley, she's committed to the county, but you know, she has a special home here in headquarters. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I have a question for you. The sheriff's alerts tell it all. Is there a reason that we shouldn't just put the sheriff's alerts out?
The SMC alerts,
Yes.
in relationship to what?
Well, I mean, why do we have to have special treatment from you? Because they're right here on your website, just,
No, so,
right,
so it's not special treatment, what it's service, right?
right.
So it's
Yeah,
just a
yeah,
level of
but
service.
it's right. I get it once a week.
For sure, but some people don't have, I mean, people's cables going out, their phones don't work, right? So if there's another
Okay.
mechanism to
Mhm.
get that information out to help you, then that's what we'll do. Because the you know, service is why we're here, right? That's why we're public servants, right? So if we could do anything to help you, and it's not a big lift, be more than happy to do that. I just want to convey that to you.
Thank you very much.
Daily.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Captain.
Any other comments before we move on from here? I would like to entertain a motion to approve.
So I would move, I would ask Catherine to help me because obviously we're not approving the updated financial portion. We're actually
Yeah, I think the
giving
recommendation is,
approval for the mayor to sign the sheriff's contract for the next 2 years?
With
Is
the
that-
amendment,
yeah, the recommendation is probably more clearly laid out in the second page of the staff report. And that is approve the updated sheriff's contract for fiscal year 23-24 and fiscal year 24-25.
with the amended,
With the-
updated language.
With, as amended,
As
as
amended.
Sharif described regarding the alarm permits.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote?
Councilmember Hefty,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Haskell,
Aye.
Mayor Warnikoff.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And if I may, Mayor, just one note as town manager, just to reiterate the conversations that I've had with Captain Fox and the community, and those are still in motion, whether it's investigating flock cameras, looking at other services and all the different pieces. That's for a separate discussion that will continue. So,
Great.
thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again. All right, moving on to council subcommittee liaison regional reports. Are there any verbal reports that are not included in the packet?
I did attend the POG meeting.
Yes,
I did not write it up.
that's fine.
I'm sorry. So yeah, there was a pretty important meeting of the POG, which is the working
Hawthorns.
group for the Hawthorns, practically speaking. And it was a meeting where they're really starting to refine the exact trail plan and the exact parking. There were several people from Portola Valley that spoke, and there will be, you can RSVP, I think, to participate March 24th, this Sunday in the morning, I believe. You can RSVP if you want to participate. They are not going through the whole plan again. They are picking certain areas, in particular, where to place benches. They're going to have flags up for that type of thing. They're going to have flags up indicating one of the trails that is more proximate to the ranch that might cross a field. There was some discussion of whether or not to have that connect up with Sweet Springs, as well as a lower down connection. So there are things that people can comment on and impact and should pay attention to. I think they're very much torn. They did these things called straw polls. It was nothing binding on each different variation and part of a trail and a parking option. And there is good general consensus on the trails, subject to the Sweet Springs connector and subject to a little more controversy around mountain biking versus the pedestrian, equestrian, and dogs on leash permissions and uses. But the parking still very much remains unclear where they're going to end up. I think the chair of the POG said, I feel like I don't know what to recommend to the ultimate decision maker, because both of these options have significant downsides. And the two options are where the current entrance to the Hawthorns off of Alpine is. You would just go up and then you would kind of curve over to the left. And then there's one that is between Nathorst, the intersection of Alpine and Nathorst and Hillbrook. And that one is favored for certain reasons, but is admitted to present additional safety issues that would need to be mitigated. So the straw poll there was all over the place. So they're very much still working in their own minds through which of those two options they preferred. They did remind people that another option that had been floated, there's a conservation easement preventing people from going in the current entrance and going to the right and building a parking lot there, which some people thought would be a safer alternative. So I would encourage everybody to go online. The maps that are on their site are very helpful to understand where these different options are. And now is time, from now on, people should really weigh in on their thoughts and concerns or support for different trail options and parking options.
Thank you. I'll just add for the record in terms of the process, just because there has been a lot of confusion about this. There are two more meetings of the POG, the one that Judith just mentioned on March 24th and another one in June. Then the POG will make a recommendation to their Natural Resources Committee. Then their Natural Resources Committee will make a recommendation to their board. Then their board will hold a study session. This will probably all be happening, going 6 months, 6 to 9 months from now. And then it will come to a study session of the council. And so we are a long ways off to a decision because that's even about a year just to get to a study session for the council. So the ongoing feedback's been terrific and the participation's been great, but we're a long ways away from decisions. So thank you for attending on my behalf.
Can I ask one question? Of one of the two of you. I know at one point we had talked about getting an easement on the trail that basically fronts Alpine. Basically move our existing trail sort of back farther, make it a little bit safer in the property. Is that still in play?
So,
Yeah,
You wanna-
you know it better. so.
yeah, I haven't heard any discussions about easement. I guess I'm going to assume that aspect would come in when it comes to the town. But yes, one of the trails that's being looked at is the trail that's it's called the Alpine Trail.
Okay, thank you.
And one of the related issues is just, they want to be able to close the property at the certain times of day. So if it's a town trail, it would have to remain accessible to the town. So that's one element that becomes complicated if you start looking at moving it in. How would that look? But again, it should be to be discussed in the future.
Sure, and they might just have to move the fence back
Sure.
in.
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
do it. Anyway, thank you.
I did want to comment on the bicycle pedestrian traffic and safety committee. Because that's where the sheriff was there and has been attending. But there was a definite uptick when he started complaining. And he's been great. And they pointed out how helpful it has been over the years for Gary Nielsen to be coming to all of their meetings and as a police commissioner. And for example, because Gary's been trying to retire for the last year and he has found a replacement, but we haven't appointed it. So I'm hoping that we can move ahead with that. The sheriff's department just told me that it was an important liaison position for them as well, and it might decrease some of the ignorance and confusion that you hear to have somebody in town who is available to talk about these things. The other thing that was really striking about it was, it's a point of action at some point, is that the CCAG has come twice to that meeting with their LRSP program, which is Local Roadways Safety Plan, and has a very pressured schedule for performance of creation of a safety plan for our roadways. And it is completely unrealistic for us. They wouldn't even be able to get, so they're basically going to have to do a pass because the timeline is such that we couldn't possibly meet it. As well as the fact that we couldn't afford it if we met it. So that is a complicated question. And again, as always, the safe routes to school comes up, and the fact that we maybe we're basically, I also cleared that that we just need to do the rocking and we need to do it, but we have to wait until it's a little drier.
I have an open space update. as
Go ahead.
well. So open space met last week. The first part was a presentation by a member of the finance committee reviewing various mechanisms that might be available to them to essentially earn appropriate market interest on the amounts there. And it's pretty complicated because there's a blending of the funds when you are moving into an interest-bearing account. So they just did a little bit of a study session more than anything about what are we earning now and what are various options potentially to make sure we're maximizing our funds in for the open space. They also started a discussion or evaluation of, do they want to make available or support efforts in connection with the Sunrise effort to identify alternate sites, or what is their role in that in order to preserve open space like Dorothy Ford Field? What is an appropriate element of support for them? For example, should some of their funds be used to support investigating alternate sites? So it's very preliminary, early stage discussion by them, but they are very focused on trying to support the Sunrise and be creative about what they can do in that. So we're trying to keep them apprised of the ad hoc committee on the post-adoption plan efforts, and we'll look to give them guidance in the future on what might be helpful, but it's very early stage right now.
Thank you, Judith.
I had one more for geologic safety, which met on March 11th. And it continues to be interesting. They submitted a safety element report and are looking forward to the response to that eventually as we go into the safety element. And they've also submitted an evacuation. Well, they haven't submitted, they have finally created a document which then they have approved it with modification entitled Evacuations of Portola Valley During a Wildfire Followed by Earthquake for our evacuation plan, which that will go to the evacuation, the Emergency Preparedness Committee, and they've been working with them pretty closely. Again, there's a request to have and I just told them to reach out to go ahead and get the geologist to come to one of their meetings. Our geology consultant.
Thank you, Mary. Any other reports?
Do we want to say anything about our outreach?
I don't think there's any formal, I mean, efforts continue. We are having various meetings with people who have reached out to us and indicated interest in at least learning something. So
yeah,
keep moving.
It's a work in progress. And it is.
Thank you. With that, I will see, any comments on liaison reports? Christy Corley.
Yeah, thank you for your reports. I just wanted to add that I think what I heard also with Hawthorns is that seemed like the majority when they were raising their paddles, are we going to be in favor of dogs on trails? It looked like a majority said yes to that. The more controversial obviously would be the bike usage. And then there was a request to put so you can bring horses in, so horse trailer parking. So I'm not sure where they're going to go with that. But I just wanted to mention that. And then they're down to the drawings number 7 and number 8. And number 8 is the one lower. And the bikes speed up at the lower entrance. And they're trying to push that one more for some reason. So I think what I've heard from the representatives from Portola Valley is they would like the Los Trancos option to still be an option and look at how we could mitigate, whether it be trees or so we can get the site better. So they don't, a few of our representatives want that site to open up as a potential for parking and for them to discover and look at that closer. And for some reason, MROSD is not looking at that. So I think in my notice today that people are rolling through on Los Trancos, that crosswalk. So I think that Los Trancos crosswalk needs to be, they're coming down Los Trancos, they're rolling through the crosswalk that the kids walk down. So I am concerned about that. And I think that's all I have to add.
Thank you, Christy. I don't see any other hands raised on Zoom, so I will close oral communications on this meeting and accept a motion
Mayor,
to.
if I may, I'm sorry
Yes,
to,
please do.
unorthodox, I would like to just make one comment, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I do want to publicly thank Corey Stocker Pedalino for all her hard work. As you know, when we talk about the restructure and the refocus and the different pieces, we're all pulling double, triple, quadruple duty because we have limited staff. And so here you have our assistant town manager working as our town clerk tonight. We are working towards, and we will announce soon our plan for town clerk, but really want to recognize that because not only does she step above and beyond, but it's obviously not sustainable moving forward as we get tired. And so just really want to just publicly acknowledge her and her work and her work ethic, if you will, as we move forward. So as you all know, she's my right hand and my left hand. And so just really appreciate it.
Thank you for doing that. And Corey, yes, Corey, I think you're like 1 year and 1 month with the town of Portola Valley. I think you've worn like every single hat that we have, and you've done it with a smile. And we are really lucky to have you. So I would echo Sharif's comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice way to end the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting adjourned.